Welcome to Carol and Gary's See America Tour. After driving for approximately 4 hours on Tuesday, Carol and I are now in Topeka, Kansas. On Wednesday, August 8th, we went to see the Kansas State Capitol building. Although not the largest city in the state, Topeka is the capital of Kansas. As of the 2010 census, the population of Topeka was approximately 125,500 residents. The dome of the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. influenced the design of future state capitals. 36 of the 50 states have a dome. Here you can see the brass and glass dome on the Kansas Capitol building from the inside. But there are two layers to this dome. Above this dome is another dome that is visible from the outside. As you can see from this picture, the yellow line represents what people see from inside, but what is shown in red approximates the actual top of the dome. A tour guide will escort you to the access point on the 5th floor, where you can climb 296 steps to the top of the exterior dome. Then the guide opens the door so you can walk out onto a narrow walkway and take pictures. Here is a little of the walk going up. And here are some of the pictures taken from outside. I couldn't get the camera running quick enough, but here is a young couple from the dome tour walking down the final section of stairs. The interior dome is visible to my right. At the bottom of the last set of stairs, I could see the beautiful murals lining the sides of the interior dome near its top. Beginning in 1866, the Capitol building was built in sections and took 37 years to complete. Here are some pictures taken of the inside of the Capitol. On Thursday, August 9th, Carol and I visited the Evel Knievel Museum in Topeka. This is a picture of young Evel Knievel. Robert Craig Knievel Jr. was born October 17, 1938. He was a daredevil from his early childhood, but was inspired the first time he saw race car driver turned stunt car driver Joey Chipman's Thrill Show in 1953 at the age of 15. The show featured car and motorcycle stunts with jumps, fire, and lots of action. It was after that show that Bobby went home and tore off one of his garage doors to make a takeoff ramp for his bicycle. He convinced his brother Nick to charge the neighbor kids 2 cents apiece for a show. Then he tore off the other garage door to make a landing ramp. In 1956, after crashing his motorcycle while being chased by the police in his hometown of Butte, Montana, one of the officers referred to Bobby Knievel as Evel Knievel. The name stuck. The career of motorcycle daredevil Evel Knievel spanned from 1965 to 1980. This is one of his early bikes. It's a 1969 Honda American Eagle. It has a 750cc engine. This was a heavy bike. It weighed 500 pounds. Evel landed successfully 7 times on this bike, but crashed 6 times over a span of 2 years. He switched exclusively to Harley-Davidson between 1970 and 1977. Over the span of his career, Evel made approximately 158 jumps, 75 ramp to ramp, resulting in 19 crashes. This is a picture of Evil posing in front of 14 Greyhound buses that he was about to jump in October 1975 at Kings Island Theme Park in Ohio. The successful jump was 166 feet. This is a picture of Evil's famous Mack truck that he traveled in and used as a dressing room before performances. A trailer that carried his jump ramps and motorcycles was pulled behind the truck. Evil performed wheelies and other stunts on a different bike than the one he used for jumps. The truck and trailer combined was so long and so heavy that a special permit was needed to travel through some states. There was a great deal of history about Evil in the museum, including a list of all of his injuries and the number of times certain bones were broken. Evel Knievel died on November 30th, 2007 at the age of 69. He had been in failing health for years after suffering from diabetes and pulmonary fibrosis, an incurable condition that scarred his lungs. On Friday, August 10th, Carol and I went to visit Ron Lessman at a place called Truckhenge in the northeast corner of Topeka. Ron's family has been on this property since 1879. Here is a picture of Ron. Ron is a very colorful, very fast-talking individual who just wants to be left alone, but the government keeps messing with him. And that's how Truckhenge started. Several years ago, a sheriff's deputy told Ron that he needed to pick up his junk lying around the property. So that's exactly what Ron did. He picked up the front of his trucks. This caused the government to say that Ron has created a safety hazard, but he quickly explained how he had supported the back of each truck with a 3,000-pound block of cement. His trucks aren't going anywhere. Ron has branched off and has started Boathenge. As we walked around the property with Ron, he talked a mile a minute, but it was obvious that there was more to Ron than just a bunch of old trucks and boats. He and his family live in a Quonset hut that he pulled out of the dump years ago. After using a crane to erect the Quonset hut, Ron covered the house inside and out with spray foam insulation, making it very quiet and waterproof. Ron taught himself to carve with a chainsaw. He mostly does this in the winter when he isn't so busy, but he's pretty good with a chainsaw. Numerous pieces of his chainsaw art decorate his property. Ron also raises catfish and peacocks. The catfish live in a 30-acre pond on the property. You don't need a fishing license because it's private property, but Ron does collect a small fee for the fishing. We saw several peacocks walking around but didn't go fishing. Ron lives on a large acreage. He charges to have cement and bricks dumped at the backside of his property. Many of the bricks are used to create artwork. We saw what Ron describes as the road to nowhere, and this sign saying Topeka made out of bricks. An old school bus on the property has been used by many students for their senior pictures. Ron created what he called Beer Bottle City. Using cement in his old beer bottles, he has built several tall pieces of art. On Saturday, August 11th, Carol and I toured the Charles Curtis House in Topeka. Charles Curtis was the Vice President of the United States under President Herbert Hoover, the 31st President of the United States, between 1929 and 1933. Charles Curtis was the first person with significant Native American ancestry to be elected to the Vice Presidency. He was from the Kaw, K-A-W Nation, born in Kansas. Before becoming Vice President, Charles Curtis was a member of the U.S. Senate. He bought this house in 1907 when he was elected to the Senate. Our tour guide was a sweet old 85-year-old woman named Nova Cottrell. She and her husband Don, who is now 90, bought the house in 1992. They drive 20 miles every Saturday to open the house for tours. When the Cottrells bought the house, it needed a lot of repairs. The roof leaked and the front door wouldn't close. Nova said that her husband Don, a retired plumber, replaced all of the plumbing in the house. Most of the woodwork is original to the house. This decorative handrail leads to the upstairs. The doorknobs are all original. After restoring the house to its original condition, Nova set out to decorate every room with time-appropriate antiques. Nova is an antique dealer, so she has access to a large selection of items, but we could tell by talking to her that restoring this house has been a labor of love. On Sunday, August 12th, Carol and I visited the Combat Air Museum in Topeka. The Combat Air Museum preserves, restores, and exhibits aircraft, artifacts, and technology associated with military aviation history of the United States. The first plane that we saw was a Lockheed EC-121. It was sitting outside. The EC-121 was an airborne early warning and control radar surveillance aircraft. It was introduced in 1954 and retired from service in 1978. Up to 20 crew members could fly in this airplane at one time. The front of the plane was where the pilot, co-pilot, and navigator sat. Behind them was a radio operator. Further back, seating indicated that at least 5 crew members would have monitored 5 onboard radar systems like this one at the same time. There was also a small area in the back of the plane containing elevated cots, indicating long shifts in the air. When we went inside, we found that while there were approximately 40 aircraft stored in the 2 hangars, they were really packed in close together. This black plane is a Soviet MiG-15, built in Poland between 1948 and 1952. This is an F-11, flown by the Navy's Blue Angels in 1968. The F-11 was the Navy's first supersonic fighter aircraft. Although this is a terrible picture, this is an OH-12A Raven, a 3-seat military helicopter outfitted with a litter on each side for medical evacuations. This is the helicopter that delivered a wounded to the MASH 407 7th on television. This is an F-14 Tomcat, like the one flown by Tom Cruise in the movie Top Gun. But again, because everything is so tightly packed together, we couldn't take much of a picture of it. This is an F-84F. This type of plane was used by the Air Force from 1954 to 1972. The F-84Fs were to fly high-speed, low-level tactical nuclear strikes against military targets deep inside Eastern Europe if war broke out with the Soviet Union. These missions had little prospect of survival and were viewed as one-way. This is a CH-54 helicopter used for heavy lifting. In fact, the F-84F that was just mentioned was delivered to the museum by a CH-54 helicopter in 1980. We saw one of these today, but again, they were packed so close together it was hard to take pictures. Well, this wraps up our week in Topeka, Kansas. We will be leaving Tuesday morning for Kansas City. But per my long-standing rule, we will have to stay on the Kansas side of Kansas City, not venture over into the Missouri side. If you like this video but have not yet subscribed, please do so to be notified of future videos. And feel free to share with your friends. Thanks for watching.